all of the types of services that they provide. So they're going to be in charge of delivering bins, carts to your residence or apartment complexes. And eventually they will be doing more contamination inspections as far as making sure the right type of wastes are in the correct bins. We also work very closely with Department of Waste Resources, who's hosting this workshop today for educational purposes. They also run some of the solid waste facilities. So it is a big circle working all together as far as making sure that everyone in the county has the correct type of trash services. That is a big health hazard if you didn't have trash services, and we don't want that to get backed up, to go without it. So we make sure that everybody has that and they are separating their waste appropriately and according to the code. So just to give you some background and explanation of some of these laws that came into effect. The first law that came into effect actually in 2012 was AB 341, which required all commercial businesses or multifamily dwellings. That means that you are a complex of 5 or more units. You are now required to have a commercial recycling bin. So a blue bin for dry recyclables, paper, plastic, cardboard, aluminum. Pretty sure everybody is familiar with this type of recycling waste stream. And most of your businesses or commercial properties will have these bins now. 2016, AB 1826 took effect. And that now requires commercial properties or apartment complexes, multifamily dwellings, to have an additional bin, which would be the green bin for organic waste. And really it was just green waste, grass clippings, tree trimmings, and then more recently with 1383 coming into effect and kind of taking over and adding to what was already there with the commercial recycling and now the green waste, we're going to be adding organic food waste to this waste stream as well. So anyone who generates 2 or more cubic yards of any waste stream qualifies to receive this type of bin at the commercial or multifamily dwelling type of setup. So if you do not have this bin yet, you will be getting it very soon. I think most of the complexes have received the bin now, as we were working with all of the haulers to get these rolled out over the last year. So the laws come into effect, and sometimes it takes a little time to get the materials and inventory of carts and trucks. Because remember, adding another cart or bin to your property or complex means another trash truck or a route driver as well. So we've been working very closely with the haulers and Department of Waste Resources to ensure that all of the commercial businesses and multifamily dwellings have these bins. 1383 has been in the works for a while, and this bill is the short-lived climate pollutant bill. And basically, like what has already been explained, we're trying to reduce the amount of waste going in the landfills because that waste breaks down, decomposes, and contributes to the amount of methane that's being generated in the environment. So this timeline here that you can see kind of goes through what's been happening over the last few years and what the goal is with this bill, this law. Here in 2022, we are starting to roll out some of the enforcement plans. So we're making sure that everybody has the 3 bins and that we're reducing our organic waste. We're trying to divert that material from going to the landfill. As it's being separated in that green bin, it will now go to a solid waste facility that is specifically designated to process that green or organic material and turn that into a composting product or a mulch product. It's not going to go to the landfill. And to also help answer that last question, I believe it was Brianna who brought that up. Depending on the type of facility that material goes to, if you were saying a lot of gloves or contaminants are going into a material, it was kind of explained as well. It'll be picked out, but it also depends on the facility that it goes to, what type of processing equipment that they have to remove those type of contaminants. So for the most part, it can get picked out, but if it is too contaminated, sometimes that won't be able to be used. So it is very important to remember to separate appropriately and try to remove as much contaminants as it's generated. That way it doesn't have to be picked through at the end process. So the goal is to, we were going for the goal of 50% reduction by 2020. And the next goal is 75% reduction in organic waste going to the landfill in 2025. We're also, with this bill, focusing on edible food recovery. So looking at saving any food that can be donated to a food bank or organization. That way it goes to people in need instead of, again, ending up at the landfill. So we are supposed to increase our edible food recovery by 20%. These statistics and numbers were all based on a food weight or a waste characterization study, I believe in 2014. So we're looking at what was being disposed of at that time, and now we're working on numbers trying to update. And I don't know, I'm sure there's still maybe going off of more recent numbers now, but that data is still being collected as we are now starting to separate and account for all the organic material that we are processing through those solid waste facilities and the amount of material that's actually being accounted for and donated. So we're looking at those capacities for edible food as well as solid waste capacity for processing organic material within our county and then as a whole through the state. In Riverside County specifically, we do have a county ordinance, County Ordinance 745, which is for compulsory collection of solid waste. And this basically spells out that everybody in the county and the unincorporated areas does have to have the 3-bin system, whether you are a commercial business or a resident. And like I said, it does take some time to roll all this out. So at the residential level, beyond apartment complexes or commercial accounts, you may not see that just yet, depending on where you live, but it will be coming. So it is important for us to help educate you on what is going to happen as we work with the haulers to get all of this rolled out. You will have a green container for organic and food waste, a blue container for your recyclables, and that would be the more traditional recyclables, plastics, paper, aluminum. Your gray, brown, or black container, eventually it will be the gray container for all other waste streams. So the lids on the bin can also match the color according to the code. And if your bins are not currently these exact colors, they will be phased out and replaced in the future. And we also want to kind of use bins until they can't be used anymore, and then they'll be swapped out for the correct color instead of wasting them. So food scraps, like you see here, banana peels, cantaloupe rinds, the trimmings of your vegetables, eggshells, those can all go into your green organic bin now, instead of going into the regular trash and waste stream. If your complex or apartment complex or business does feel that they don't generate enough organic waste, you can contact our department for a waiver, or if there isn't enough space to have one of these bins, you can contact our department for a waiver. I think that's on the next slide. Oh no. So just new services. You'll see all these bins, and the rates are set up in a package. If you have the standard package of your bins, the cart system, that depends on your hauler. But if you have to add an additional bin, or you need to swap out your bin sizes, increase the frequency of your pickups, things like that, you will expect some changes in the service or the fees that you are seeing on your bills. But that is going to be spelled out to you, and we will work with your hauler, and you can talk to your hauler for the explanation and the details of that. But overall, you would still be getting your weekly pickups for the bins, And yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Our department does keep track of all of the waivers, and you do have to apply through you can email us for the application. But like I said, if you aren't generating enough organic materials, so that would be a de minimis waiver, you can contact our department. And if you don't have enough space for an additional bin, we can take a look at your property and possibly waive a particular service because you don't have space to have that bin. Self-hauling would mean that you are going to take all of your trash, and that would be regular trash, recyclables, and the organic material to solid waste facilities that have permits on your own instead of having the hauler pick it up from your premises or your house. So if that's something that you are wanting to do instead of having your trash service, that is a possibility. You do have to fill out an application, and we do need to see proof that you take your trash to the locations that are spelled out on your application. And we ask that you or require that you submit receipts to our department quarterly, but you do have to have receipts for your weekly drop offs, just like you would have a weekly trash service. The email that you'll want to send a request for is the solidwaste@rivco.org. So that would, we will be in communication with you, get the details of what's happening, have you fill out an application, and then contact your hauler so that we can do a site evaluation and make sure that whatever type of waiver you're applying for actually meets that, and then we can approve it with the hauler. Some possibilities for different cart sizes are listed here, but that would be specific to the type, to your hauler and the area that you're in. So you'll want to pay close attention to the information that your hauler sends out if they give you any options for the cart sizes or bin sizes. And then make sure you contact customer service if you do need help or you feel like a different bin size would be better to your home. Here's waste management, CR&R, and Vertex information. I believe that they are all going to be coming on after my section to answer questions. Desert Valley Disposal is also another hauler. I just didn't know, I don't think that they're going to be on today, but we do have their information as well if you need it. Like I said, environmental health, we oversee the franchise contracts and work with haulers. We also issue all the waivers. So here's our contact information at Lemon Street. That's the office where I currently work, and the staff that does do the solid waste. We oversee the solid waste program. It's referred to as the LEA. That's for local enforcement agency. You can contact anyone in our department and you can be forwarded to the right program. So if you go onto the general website at RivCoEH.org, or if you just email directly to the solid waste program at solidwaste@RivCo.org. Department of Waste Resources is also available for questions, and they have lots of resources on their website as well for recycling classes, waste reduction classes. And here are some resources to the different laws that took effect over the last few years that have led up to where we are today with separating our waste streams and the requirements to reduce the organic material in the landfill. The county resources include, like that was already explained, the donation reference sheet of all the food banks that are available for edible food recovery. And that is it. Does anybody have any questions?
Hi there. Thank you for the slideshow. And I just realized that actually people can apply for the waivers if they don't want a certain service. So, is there any mandatory law or ordinance that say, hey, if you are a residence or a complex, if you apply for the waiver, we cannot approve that because of some rules and regulations? Because the way I see it, I compost at home, so my green bin is just sitting there since the day I got it, and I'm not even using it. And at the time, city distributed those green bins. I have no idea we can approve for the waiver because the documentation we got in the mail, I think, did not mention about applying for the waiver. Can you just explain a little bit more on that?
Sure. It does depend on where you're at, who your hauler is. You said you're in the city. What city was
I'm
that?
in Palm Springs, and our hauler is Burtec.
In the city.
Yeah.
Okay, so that would be a little bit different. We only oversee the waivers for the unincorporated areas. However, you should contact the Burtec and in the city. You can work with them and see if there is something. It does depend because we do need to see. I mean, the green bin would be for everything, so every type of food waste, and so you would compost everything at your house, like including like any meats or um, all leftover food. Sometimes not all those things are composted at home. It's mostly like vegetable scraps.
Mhm.
So you could definitely get more information to see if you qualify for a waiver. Right now, we've really, in the unincorporated area, only process waivers for commercial businesses or apartment complexes as a whole. We
Okay.
haven't started to process any residential ones, except for self-hauling, which would be all the services you're taking on your own.
Okay. Okay, I will get in touch with my hauler and try to know more about this because I am also a community. I'm working with a community composting group, so I am most of the time I haul my stuff to the community composting site that we are doing, or I have bin system that I attended the master composter training with the Riverside County, and I've been like doing composting at home, and I'm pretty much composting everything that I'm generating inside the house, and I'm trying to like set an example by reducing the amount of the material we keep in different bins, like especially the brown bin or the green bin. So I'm trying to like learn and educate the people in my home just to like, hey, we need to sort out this, and we can't just put everything in the bins. If there is anything that residents can have this kind of waiver, I think that for me is like much more like, oh, I can do this, I can compost at home, and I don't need this service. So I'll get in touch with you guys and with the hauler to explore more on this one. Thank you.
Yeah, it's perfect. Great. I'm glad you're working on that at home. That's great. Thank you. I don't know if there's any other questions or things you want me to go.
Yeah, actually, I have one question for you. So if you're like a resident of an apartment complex and like they aren't compliant, like they don't provide a green bin to throw away your organic waste, is there a way to make a complaint or have someone come look at it and like solve that issue?
Sure. Depending on where you are located, if you're in the unincorporated area, you can contact our department and we will be happy to look at the account and contact your hauler to see. Could be possibly that one hasn't quite made it out to that location just yet, but is in the works. Or maybe there was some type of waiver because not enough waste, like organic waste, is being generated there. But if it's an apartment complex, I would think you would have a lot of organic material. So just send me an email and we can look at it. What are you in the city or the unincorporated area, or is it just a
So
general?
apartment complex was in the city. So would you like contacting like the city about it then?
It could be. You could also you could send me an email and I could help you look into that.
Okay, awesome.
I just saw Kathleen put. Oh, Kathleen put Riverside County Department of Waste Resources has multifamily complex bags that can be utilized for collecting recyclables in your units and then hauling it to complex's container. If you're interested in more information, please have the complex manager contact our department at waste composting recycling at rivco.org or call the number that's in the chat, 951-486-3200. Thank you, Kathleen. I think that might be it for me.
Thank you, Sandy. That's
Thank
a
you.
lot of good information to get out there, and we appreciate you covering the exemptions and waivers and that process. I think that that's of interest to a lot of people and a lot of businesses. Okay, so I am going to start the next session, which is going to be with our waste haulers. Organics and food waste collection is, when you think about it, a daunting task to take on for 2.4 million residents. But fortunately, we have a lot of really good waste haulers that are servicing Riverside County, and they got this thing down. Thought it would be a good opportunity to learn how two of our waste haulers that provide curbside service in Riverside County have expanded their service to help the jurisdictions meet the mandates of the current regulation. Today we're going to hear from CR&R and Waste Management Incorporated. First up is going to be Goseline Huerta. She's a sustainability specialist. I'm in my bad habits there. A sustainability specialist at CR&R Environmental Services. She recently started the position this year in early July and works directly under the Senior Sustainability Manager, Barbara Jimenez. Prior to the position, she worked for a laboratory that tested food products for certain pathogens. She decided to step away from that position in hopes to She decided to step away from that position in hopes of obtaining a position that would allow her to do more community outreach and become more involved with the public. So far, she has enjoyed her involvement in the city's CR&R services and getting exposed to some of our California environmental laws. She's eager to get more involved, become more knowledgeable, and with regards to our bills such as SB 1383 and to get more people involved in recycling. So I'm going to hand it over, or Mike, can you go ahead and make Goseline Huerta the presenter so she can share?
I think I can share. Give me 1 second.
She's on.
Awesome.
She's got it.
Okay, Goseline, you are on.
Okay. All right. So, hi everyone. Thank you, Janet, for that introduction. My name is Goseline Huerta. I was recently hired here at CR&R as a sustainability specialist this year. Eager and excited to continue learning and working here and just to be another resource for the customers that we service. Are you guys able to hear me well?
Little muted.
About now.
Better, much
Better.
better.
Yes.
Yay. Okay, so for my presentation, I'll be focusing more on what I've been exposed to thus far with regards to SB 1383. Okay, so Senate Bill 1383, it was signed into law by Governor Brown in 2016. Its regulations went into effect January 1st, 2022, so this year. It requires the state to increase edible food recovery by 20% by 2025. It also requires the state to reduce organic waste disposal by 75% by 2025, and a 75% reduction of organic waste actually equals 20 tons annually statewide. That's a lot. Why was this bill even signed into law? Well, when organic waste decomposes, it produces methane. As mentioned earlier, methane is a greenhouse gas, and it is 84 times more potent than carbon dioxide, making it a great contributing factor to climate change. Therefore, to reduce methane emissions, we trying to focus on reducing the organic amount of waste that gets tossed into our landfills. Reducing the amount of organic waste can also extend our landfill capacity. That was also mentioned. Backstory, I guess, on CR&R. So CR&R first started with the three crate system in 1986, and then transitioned to the three cart system in 1991. The color coding system for CR&R consists of blue, black, and green. Recyclables go into the blue cart, trash or materials sent to the landfill gets placed into the black cart, and organic waste goes into the blue cart. As I mentioned, recyclables get placed into our green cart, so those materials vary, and it could be things such as aluminum, cardboard, paper, plastic, and then the material that gets placed into our trash, into the black cart, are things like styrofoam, diapers, ceramic, and then we have our organic cart, which is green, and then yard waste, food waste now gets placed in there. And we also offer our customers this cute little food pail right here. I've already started handing these out. I actually delivered 50 food pails myself to the city of Santa Mesa, and we have been getting positive feedback on this food pail to help our customers recycle their food scraps. And so just a slightly better image of what gets placed into our green cart or our organic cart. We have your fruits, your beets, bread, bogs, so fats, oils, and grease, and then your yard waste as well. So after the material in your organic cart gets collected, it is hauled back to our facility to get sorted out and then transferred into the anaerobic digester. So all this organic matter, we still get a good amount of contamination. And so a lot of labor goes into actually picking out the material that is in the green cart. So we're really trying to focus on getting more people involved with recycling properly. And so CR&R is one of the only environmental services companies to offer total collection of residential food waste and waste for energy recovery and nutrient production with 100% capture of methane emissions. The methane that is captured is used to fuel our trucks and actually goes back into the natural gas pipeline. We have also even started giving our cities the opportunity to procure the compost that the AD produces, the anaerobic digester. And these are actual images of our AD that we have here at the parent facility. And so we have also even started conducting field audits. They are done at random due to SB 1383 regulations. Both residential and commercial sites have already been audited. Auditors are looking for contamination in our customers' trash, recycling, and organic cart bins. Pictures and notes of the contamination are taken and saved using Audit Pro, which is an application that we created and packaging. The goal.
Jocelina, I don't know. Yeah, I'm just wondering you're still sounding kind of tinny. You're on your microphone. Is it?
I'm so sorry, guys.
I know this is really good information, and I want everybody to hear, as much as they can about the anaerobic digester. Um, so the microphone is the on your headphones that goes around your neck.
Let me see. I know if I take it off, it'll probably be worse. And these are the only headsets I have currently.
I think if you just held it up a little bit.
Like this.
Yes.
Okay.
I think that would be wonders. Thank you.
I'm so sorry, guys.
It's
No,
okay.
no.
Okay, so I guess with the field audits, or should I continue with the slide?
Yes.
Yes, okay. So the goal for these field audits are to provide education and information on our recycling program to our customers. Educational tags, which I'll show a picture of in a little bit, are actually, they can actually notate where contamination occurred and then they're left on the carts or bins. So that way, you're getting a little educated with these field audits. And we also hand out flyers to customers. So they're really neat. So let's say the auditors find some contamination in your recycling, like organic. They'll go ahead and circle this so you're aware, hey, you're not recycling properly. Let's let's show you what goes where, and then that gets like tied onto the cart or bin. And then we also hand out these a little bit more eye or cute or not cute, but more pleasing flyers to look at. And it tells you what we're able to place into the green cart and our recyclable cart. Sometimes still think that's great. And these are posters. And so we're really trying to focus on education. We even hand out these posters right here to businesses to help them, businesses that like produce more food waste, to help them know what we're able to accept in the green cart. And then we also hand out these flyers. This is actually my personal favorite flyer because it has like a little snip of a Senate Bill 1383, some information on that, why we're trying to recycle our food waste, how we would like you to help us recycle the food waste, what is accepted, the food pill that we offer, and a little snip of how you can help keep that green cart a little bit more clean, and then what we do with that green waste. So really good flyer. And so we're really trying to focus on educating our customers. Okay, and then that's my presentation.
Okay, well, before we go on, we have a couple of questions in the chat. Looks like Brianna asked questions as to why are paper towels and tissue paper put in the trash?
Stop sharing. Get this question. For the sake of the AD, compatible with our anaerobic digester, and so that's really why.
So you say they are acceptable?
For at least for CR&R,
Hmm.
um,
Yeah, I think so for CR&R, would paper towels and tissue paper be so those
yeah. So at least for CR&R, because we use our anaerobic digester, it's not compatible with it. So that's why we can't accept it in our green card
very good.
here.
Okay. And then and that the paper towels and tissue paper that could Brianna, that could be specific to your waste hauler as to how they're going to want you to um, where they would want you to place those types of materials. So we don't have all of the waste haulers represented here today, and you may want to check with your waste hauler directly. Go to their website. They usually have a lot of educational information on their websites to um, visually show you what would go into each of their containers. Um, The next question is from Kathleen, and she has a question. Have you seen less contamination with your educational tags that you're putting on the OOPS tags? Are you seeing that being effective and educating and reducing the amount of contamination going into those bins?
I think it's too early to tell. We just started this year, but we have been getting a lot of comments that people are noticing that. But hopefully, maybe next year or sometime soon, we'll have an actual answer to that. But it's too soon to tell.
Another question in the chat is from Tracy, and she wants to know how soon are you going to start selling the compost from the anaerobic digester?
Not really my department. So what I do is when cities reach out, then we work with them, and I think it's like it depends on who reaches out, honestly. But I wouldn't be able to answer this, but I could get back to Tracy Davis.
Got it. We just don't know yet. And I have a question. I was just curious as to what type of contamination are you seeing in the curbside curbside bins that we can better educate some of the residents on trying to keep that out?
Sorry, so could you repeat that one more time?
What types of contamination are you seeing in the curbside green waste bins that we can be better about getting the word out to direct residents to definitely keep these types of materials out of the green waste?
Okay. And our green waste, we see things of plastic, hoses, buckets. So it varies a lot, honestly. I think maybe just more of the recyclable material or like paper or tissues and stuff like that. And also bags. We do not accept bags in the green card as well. Any plastic bags or decomposable bags as well, just because our AP can't distinguish between the two.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a problem for a lot of these programs as they go forward, because the biodegradable plastic bags, it is hard to distinguish which are and which are not compostable.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Joseline, I want you to hopefully you can stay on in case we have more questions down the road, but I'm going to switch over and introduce Art Marquez. Art is with Waste Management Incorporated, and he is a public sector manager for waste management and also the direct waste management representative for Riverside County. Art has been with Waste Management for 5 years and actually started as a community relations specialist at the El Sobrante landfill. When not talking trash, you can find Art spending time with his family and coaching his kids' soccer teams. And so, Art, are you ready to roll?
Good morning, and thank you for the introduction. Yes, I'm ready to go. How's the audio?
The audio is great.
Audio's good.
Okay,
And
great.
let's see if you can share your screen.
All right. All right. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
Yes, awesome. Thank you.
All right, fantastic. Well, good morning again, everybody. Goseline did a great job kind of going over 1383. So a little bit of the information that we go over here will be a little redundant, but it's good to kind of reiterate because this is a very important bill. So today we're going to talk about specifically SB 1383, which is in regards to organic waste. So we went over this, but essentially the purpose of this new law is to divert organic material from our landfills. And so California recognizes that this is a recyclable material. So if we can keep it out of landfills and take it to a compost facility, we can go ahead and recycle a lot of the organic waste that we've been throwing away for many, many years, reduce greenhouse gases, just like it was explained before. So it has great intentions, but as we all know, implementation can be a little difficult. So we're here today to kind of go over what it looks like from the waste management side. So this is a good picture to show you the residential container changes. So 1383 requires that carts be uniform in colors across the state by 2036. So what you will see is this dark gray, almost black looking body with a color top. So your green is your organics, which was referred to as your green waste container in the past. But because now you can commingle your organic food and your food waste with your yard trimmings and your landscaping, now we call it your organic container. So that'll be color coded with a green top. Then we move on to your blue top, which is your recyclables. And as we all know, the recycle industry has taken a severe hit. So we've had to revert back to the basics. So we're talking clean paper, clean cardboard, plastic bottles, and cans. That's what goes into your blue container. And then last but not least, you have your black top container, which is for your trash. So everything else that doesn't go into the other two bins and that is not a hazardous material will go into your black container there. So this kind of reiterates the 3-cart system that you see here from the top view. You got your green, your blue, your black. So everybody should be on a 3-cart system as a waste management customer. This is a great picture to show you what exactly goes into each cart. It also shows what does not go into each cart. And all these flyers that you're seeing here, all these visuals can be found on our waste management website. If you simply do a Google search of Recycle Right Waste Management, it'll take you directly to our website where we have all these visuals available for anybody that's interested in getting them. So along with 1383, there is cart monitoring and enforcement. So regulations passed by the state require a contamination cart monitoring and enforcement program to help reduce contamination in the recycling and organic collection cart. Now, enforcement's not going to start off right away. There's going to be a strong period there of education and outreach to notify our customers of how to properly recycle in each container and if there is contamination. Some of the most common contaminants that we are seeing out there are a lot of loose plastic bags, silverware, utensils. There's hazardous waste, or the most common one I think is the fact that you bag your recycling or bag your organics and then place it in the carts. There is absolutely no bags allowed. And I will go ahead and address this now. One of the most popular questions that we get is, can we use biodegradable plastic bags in my organics container for the food waste? And the answer is no. Unfortunately, those biodegradable bags or those eco-friendly bags, however they want to market them to you, they do not break down fast enough as the food. So it ends up contaminating the load, and you essentially prevent that organic material from getting a second life and being recycled as compost. So an alternative, because we do understand that there are sanitary concerns, it gets kind of messy, there's odor, is if you want to use newspaper to wrap your organics or even brown paper bags. So that seems to work most effectively. If you use brown paper bags to put your food waste in there and then throw it away in your bin, it seems to help mitigate a lot of those concerns. So this is a great example of a lot of the recyclable contaminants that we find in your blue top, if not gray body recycling can currently. So as you can see, people throw away food waste, hazardous material, clothing, textiles, garden hoses. And the problem with garden hoses and small plastic debris is that once it gets to the transfer station where there's essentially an assembly line sorting out your recyclable material, it gets caught in the machines, and they actually have to shut the machine down, stop production, and it's very time consuming and ineffective. So that is why you'll see, no loose bags and garden hoses and things like that. That would actually go in your trash. And these are great pictures, great examples of what contamination looks like. So on the far left, where you see all the branches and the trees sticking out of the bins, that's not necessarily contamination for your green waste container, but it is definitely overloaded, which becomes a safety risk. And so if you're placing your tree branches and all that in your trash and your recycling, well, now you're contaminating those other 2 cans, and that organic material can be recycled and become compost. So the middle picture, you'll see again that bins are overloaded. The lid should be able to close. And then on the third and the final picture, you'll see that it's a recycling cart with styrofoam, loose bags, loose wire in there, everything that we kind of discussed to not go in there. So I know 1383 specifically focuses on residential, but we also want to reiterate that that AB 341 and AB 1826 were specifically for commercial. So at this point, it's been going on for many years. So if you are a commercial or a multifamily complex, you can reach out to us at any time, because we do need to get you compliant with trash, recycling, and organics. And Waste Management does offer a free recycle audit. So if you do not know what you need or what your services need to look like to be compliant, we would be more than happy to go out there for free and do a site evaluation for you and help you become compliant. We just want to reiterate that our commitment to our customers, we have our customer service representatives available to you from 8 to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday, and we even have them available Saturdays from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. Here's some customer service numbers that you can take down. And we also want to reiterate that technology is always advancing. So we are fully accessible through our website. You are able to create an account. We do have a mobile app, and there are certain services that are available to you. So we highly encourage that you log on to our website, download the mobile app, create your account, and it's constantly being updated. So eventually what we wanted is anything waste related for the services that we provide would be accessible in the palm of your hand. So I know there's a lot of those that are available right now, but we highly recommend you check them out. This is going to be my last slide here, and we wanted to list the resources available to you guys. So again, what I said about your WM profile, more information about the laws, we got Cal Recycle on here, and then on how to recycle right is our specific recycling website to help you guys out with any resources you may need. So that'll conclude my presentation. Please let me know if anyone has any questions. I'll stop sharing my screen here.
I have a quick question, Art. This is
Hi,
Tracy.
Tracy.
Hello. Okay, so I loved that you guys just sent out a newsletter, but it looks like it's going to be a quarterly newsletter. And being a WMI customer, I know I'm recycling right, but I know people down the street that don't. I try to share the information and say, keep your bags out of the greenways, keep your bags out of the recycling. But you constantly see bags sticking out the top of these things and just a smidge open and stuff like that. And I understand that it really takes an effort to get through to some people because they're consumers, where I'm a recycler, not a consumer. But is there any way that WMI or other haulers that do something other than an app on the phone, because I have no space for another app. I don't look on the website. I sometimes look at my online bill because I don't really need to, because I know what it's going to be, because it got auto paid on my credit card. Is there something? I know we don't want to waste paper by mailing more stuff out, but there's got to be some place somehow to get through to the customers that we need to collect and get through to them. I know you guys do great job at El Zabrante landfill to have the kiddos come out there and do that. Is there more things that you can do with kids and to train the parents to do the next generation? I just see this as we need to do more and more and more, and so I'm trying to figure out ways to help the community. At our last event that was just a couple weekends ago, Had great to have the department come out and do a recycling sorting event for the kids was part of the event, but but other than that, I don't know how else to reach out to the community and do more for them. Do you have any more ideas, Art?
Thank you, Tracy. So I think I'm gonna do my best to try to answer everything you pointed out there. So thank you. So I think one of the hard parts about all of this is educating our customers, right? There's a lot of misconceptions out there. So I think one of the best or most effective ways that we will utilize or we plan to utilize is that monitoring and auditing phase as well is going to be very useful to us, because in the event that a contaminator is detected, we are going to essentially take a screenshot of the material that was detected, and we're going to send a letter out there with the screenshot of, hey, FYI, this material does not belong in this cart. Here's where it goes. Here's some stuff. So a lot of the stuff that you kind of just saw, you're going to kind of get an educational letter letting you know that, hey, your bin was contaminated. Here's why. Here's how you can improve it. So I think that would be one of the more effective ways we're going to utilize it. But on top of that, you're going to see social media outreach, email outreach, bill inserts outreach. So you'll see a lot of that throughout the next couple of years to really help customers get to know this law and this bill and what goes where. Did that answer your question, Tracy, or do you have another one?
No, it did. I think that helps a lot. We all are doing our part and trying to do our part, and I just, you know me, I always want more. I want it to be right.
No. You always go up and beyond, and we appreciate that. Thank you, Tracy.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, Art, we have
Sorry.
another question in the chat, and this one is from Kathleen. Do waste management customers need to place their food waste in a plastic bag and then into the organics bin?
Great question, Kathleen. So as I stated in the presentation, we actually cannot accept any plastic bags in your recycling or your organics. And even if it says biodegradable or eco-friendly type of plastic bag, it still does not belong in the organics, because what we have found out is that it does not break down and decompose as fast as the organic material. So what's happening is, if it does get bagged and it ends up at the compost facility, it's contaminated because we can't recycle the plastic. So a eco-friendly alternative that we highly recommend is placing your organic food in a brown paper bag or wrapping it in newspaper, because that will break down and decompose fast enough with the material.
I have a question on that, Art, because when we are talking about like reducing methane emission by not putting the material into the landfill, for example, if WM is doing only pickup once in a week and I'm a pretty good cook and I eat like 3 times in a day and cook for a family of 10, I'm generating a lot of food material. And if I'm
Absolutely.
just wrapping it in the paper and putting it in the green bin, isn't going to start the decomposition process already and release methane gas within that 1 week to start with. And the next point is, when there is not enough carbon material supporting it, it's gonna stink and it's gonna generate some leachate that's gonna start dripping into the floor or concrete floor, whatever the customer is, and attract more flies and everything, especially when it's summer. And summer is a major concern where the temperatures go more than 100 degrees. So how is waste management companies trying to address these issues in the future? Because it's a good thing we all got the green bins, but I think having that green thing, it made me to think in like different ways and think, oh, these are the possible things that I'm looking at and how we can manage them.
Great questions. And so what I want to start off with is that we all need to remember that this is a state mandate. So California passed the law. It came down on the jurisdictions, and the jurisdictions come down on the service providers. So we are just helping you guys become compliant on what is the law. So with that comes those difficulties with servicing a bin that has organic material that absolutely is breaking down, and we've got sanitary concerns, right, with the maggots, the flies, especially when it's heating up in there. So all of those are valid. So the suggestions that we are providing in regards to the paper bags, the newspapers, those are just a couple suggestions. What we also have seen out there is for customers that have landscaping, whether it's grass clippings, the weeds, or the branches or the tree trimmings of their yard, is that they actually start to layer the bin. So they'll, put a grass layer at the bottom, then a food layer, and then another grass layer, and then another food layer, which also helps. So if you go up and beyond and you got now layers of green waste and then newspaper wrapped with paper bags, I mean, there's definitely a lot of effort there that goes into mitigating the sanitary concerns that you have. But ultimately, if you're looking for multiple service days for your organics, what the reality is that's going to come with an increased cost. So this program already comes with an increased cost because you're looking at the capital investment from the haulers. We have to invest in the trucks, the driver, the new route, the new cans. There's a lot of money that goes into starting this. So it was probably not every waste hauler's first choice to just kind of run out with this. you know, if it was up to the haulers, they would probably want to start on the commercial side for schools and food manufacturers and people that really produce a lot of waste, and probably take our time with the residential side. But unfortunately, we live in California and they wanted to start with it January 1st, 2022. So this is unfortunately the best system that we have in place. Now, with that being said, every year, every month, we learn new things, we learn from other areas. So if better systems come out, you can absolutely believe that we'll try to implement them with our customers. But as of right now, this is the best we have.
Okay, yeah, that answers a lot of questions over there, but it's still concerns like as you mentioned, put some landscaping material like the clippings and everything.
Sure.
It's just we are adding nitrogen. There is no carbon, and nitrogen material decomposing without enough carbon ratio is what's creating methane gas in the first place. And I feel like, I mean, absolutely, we are going to come up with more solutions as we progress in this area. And I feel like at this point, I think we are creating more problem. We are creating methane gas at every household just by letting that nitrogen material start decomposing in those bins without enough carbon material and air. And we need more education in this area, because it's easy, if the haulers are telling, hey, we are providing you a bin and just put it in there, it's easy for a resident or a commercial place to do it. But most of the people want to know why this is happening and why we have to do. When people start asking why, a lot of times that's another problem right over there. I mean, I took only one class on composting and I realized, oh, doing this is creating more methane than doing more good. I thought I'm doing a good thing, but I'm creating more problem. I think this is a, overall question to all the haulers, how we can collectively come up with creative ideas and what other options we have. But thank you for answering my questions.
Of course, absolutely, and you bring up great points. So I think you should definitely run for the legislature because you got a good mind there. We appreciate that, but I think in one of your great points too is that the methane that is still being created in each can. The way we also got to look at it is that material still ended up at landfills in the past. So it was still contributing to the larger picture of greenhouse gases and methanes from landfills. And so now what we're doing, even though it's being created, because in the past it would either be in your trash or your green waste, or for those that would contaminate the recycling, you would have the material breaking down in those cans and it would still end up at the landfill. Well, now what they're doing is they're taking that material, and rather than letting it just sit and contribute to the landfill methane gases, it's being diverted to a compost facility where it is seeing a second life. So you're absolutely right. It seems like they've come up with a solution, but there are other problems still.
Yes.
Good comments. And Prima, I also wanted to let you know, one of the things, well, with home composting and things like that, a lot of times when we do add food waste to our compost pile, we'll cover it up with leaves and grass, and that helps to neutralize the odors so that the flies and insects are not attracted to it. I I hope that everybody, when they are incorporating their food waste into their green waste bin, keeps the lid closed. So during that week, while you're collecting that material and putting it in there, it's really important to keep that lid closed. I know a lot of people think that they can open the lid and it's going to air out. You can air it out when the bin is empty, but when you start accruing those organics, it's important, I think, to keep the lid closed to kind of sequester some of the odors, and so that we don't have a lot more pest problems with that.
Okay.
And I just want to scan real quick. And Tracy had a comment that methane is not created immediately. It takes weeks to decompose and be released. Oh, you can, Brianna, suggestion, you can also freeze it. So she's suggesting that you probably bag your food waste that you want to put out in the bin, freeze it until the day before your bin goes out to the curb, and then take it out, remove it from the plastic bag, and then put it in the your bin so that it's frozen and doesn't have a lot of chance to decompose prior to or sitting out in the bin. Okay.
Could I ask something else?
Yes.
I'm just because this is probably going to be the only time I'm like around. I mean, I guess that thing in January, so I'll be around other people, like very important people like you. But for now, I just wondered if there were any opinions about that like app, website, reward system thing from anyone.
I'm sorry, Brianna, is that a question towards me or for the county?
Just like waste haulers, the Riverside County, anyone that kind of, or just really anyone too. Yeah, so actually anyone. Like because I just know like things where people can sign up and kind of like Walgreens, and like you get, or Target, and you get like a $5 discount or
Oh,
something with the government, and when you got the vaccine, sometimes you got like money with it or whatever, just kind of incentives. And it doesn't have to be money, but maybe like a just kind of something. And when there's a reward involved, it kind of spreads more. And especially if the app has, or the website has like things that the person can also go to if they have any questions, or has all the information about what goes in each bin, or any updates, I think you mentioned something about the recycling. There was some kind of thing that happened where now it's only going back to the basics, just things like that, where people can check in with the app, and when they do something, well, like when they first get on, they can like do the challenges, learn what goes in each bin, take a picture, upload it, and then get the reward, and then stay on it or re-download it, or go back on the website and get points for reading any updates or whatever.
no, I totally follow what you're saying now. So sorry about that. I was a little lost in the beginning, but yeah, actually, I think that's a great suggestion. I haven't heard of anything like that, but I have no problem. We are a very large company, so we do have a corporate located out of Texas. So we do have corporate channels that we can reach out to, but that's something I can definitely suggest, almost as, simply starting off with an email. But a lot of great points, great idea there.
Thank you.
I was just gonna. Brianna had a comment in here. It says maybe a reward for downloading the app and completing challenges. And actually, I don't know, Sylvia, if you can come on, we've got Sylvia added a comment about a program that we've got coming up.
Yeah, like I mentioned in the chat, we're going to be hosting a month-long event in January with mini challenges, and every entry is going to be an entry into a raffle, and every week there will be different prices depending on that week's theme. I won't share too much to keep everybody excited, just something to keep an eye on.
I don't have any questions, but enforcement is something we
There-
have.
Do we have? Okay. Well, I think we're going to conclude this session. We've got time for a little break. Um, Jocelina, CR&R, thank you for putting together your presentation and sharing the information about CR&R's programs. We're finding some of the haulers have unique programs that it's important for us to get this information out to your customers, your clients, as often as we can. Art, uh, great job. Thank you for taking the time. We've got and Waste Management for allowing you to join us today to share this information. I've been to so many different events and things, and there's always somebody who's got a question about the food waste recycling, and I try to answer as best as I can, but it's great to have the word straight from the horse's mouth on how your programs are designed, and you know, covering the why, what, and how, I think is fantastic. I looked at your outreach materials, and having the images on there, I think, as well as the words, are just so beneficial for the users of the programs. So thank you both very much. And I think,
Yes, we're going to take a quick 10-minute break because we were asked that we do that from the last session so everybody can squeeze in a restroom run, coffee break, and we will be back in 10 minutes exactly. And then we will start with a video possibly, unless we get our other guest on sooner. And then we'll start our next guest at exactly 11 o'clock. All right, see you in 10.
thank you.
All right, George, you're unmuted.
Okay, yeah. I was having trouble.
Okay, if everyone's back.
No, everybody's back yet. Good morning, Haley.
Hey, good morning.
Good. Did you have trouble getting in, Haley?
Nope.
Okay, good. Perfect. Okay. All right, George, I'm going to be in 2 minutes.
Okay.
You didn't tell me I was going to be on the big screen like that.
You should expect that from me.
I know, I should.
You should know by now to expect the unexpected.
Right, except for with Mike, like I'm expecting that there's going to be a little mic head popping out in the background of the.
I did add one slide to your presentation.
Oh, you did?
But it's very
like
minor.
this?
Very minor.
Great. But no curveballs, right?
No, ma'am.
Oh, man.
Yet.
How has the summit been so far today?
Good. Good participants are good. Everyone's good. A lot of good questions. A lot of good people.
Good. All right. Happy to hear that. Well, I sent the same link to a couple of our people. I don't know if that was the right one to send them, but if you see some emails you don't recognize, it's probably our folks.
If anybody has any issues whatsoever, have them send me direct email and I can get them on immediately.
Okay.
Also, the link I sent you is the one I sent out to all the class members last week.
Okay, cool. Awesome.
Okay. I think we will get started, George.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. My name is George Podolsky. I'm one of the volunteer services coordinators for the department, and I'm going to introduce Haley Preston. Haley Preston is a community leader who has worked for social justice for 20 years as a mediator and an entrepreneur. Haley's lifelong passion for health and our environment led her to train as a University of California master gardener. Her research into community compost galvanized a team and then a coalition which won a startup group. As director of Desert Compost, Haley has brought new restoration charter to the Riverside County community. Haley is passionate about preparing the climate to sustain future generations. Her daily collaboration in bringing in fresh produce from the garden to her kitchen table. And her favorite thing about compost is the magic of growing food from the very scraps of these mills that became the soil again. I'm going to turn it over to Haley and Mike and let you go from there.
Thank you, George. Good morning, everybody. I figure you all are pros now on Zoom, so feel free to mute your mics. But just so you know, I come from a big family, so if there are questions and you want to interrupt my presentation, feel free. George and Mike are monitoring the chat box and the hands, so I celebrate the mess. Anyway, my name is Haley Preston, and as George said, I am the founder and director of Desert Compost, and we're a Coachella Valley-based nonprofit program of the California Alliance for Community Composting. And George and Mike invited me to speak with you today. We've been working together as partners, and they've been teaching our master composting classes here in the desert. And I'm super excited to be here with you all today. And I have a sense that I'm among some like minds here, but I just want to check and make sure, since recycling, I think, means different things to different people. I would love to know from this group what it means to you. I'm really curious. How do you personally recycle and take steps to steward something that we consider a resource? I'd like to get a sense from this group, and I won't pick on anybody. I notice a lot of people's videos are off, but I would love to know if you want to put something in the chat box or raise your Zoom hand or speak up. Let me know, what are you personally doing to recycle? Not everybody all at once, please.
My name is Tracy Davis, and I've also been a master composter since 2008. My recycling habits are really quite severe. And people think I am actually quite crazy about it. But I recycle everything and reuse every little container, and it goes in the correct bin. And I've got my 22-year-old son making the right choices, or if he doesn't have an idea, he actually asks me now. He didn't do that when he was a teenager, of course, but now he asks me. He's living under my roof while he's an adult.
Great, great.
That's my background.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that. And I love knowing that there are certainly like minds in this room. I myself am one of those people that saves all the containers and little plastics from things. But what you're saying is really impactful on two notes. The first one is, I heard you use the word severe, and I just want to reflect back to you that what seems severe just seems that way because it doesn't get talked about as much as we'd like it to. So when you come into a community of people, I'm supposing the same kind of people that are in this Zoom room together, most of us would agree that that's something that is pretty normal and actually is really precious. And you're doing something to steward something that is so valuable. So I first of all just want to send that back to you and say, not severe, but really, I'm grateful for your efforts in that, and it matters. Second is, you have a young person that has now seen this as something that was maybe curious to him as a teenager, and now he's over there doing it himself because he's living into this next generation of stewardship and responsibility. And I just, wow, good job, mama. Thank you so much for teaching that next generation. How about the rest of this room? What are you all doing? You don't have to be saving every piece of plastic to speak up. I just am curious, what's your baseline? Are you like a toilet paper roll conserver? I mean, what are you doing? Give me a sense. And George or Mike, I'm relying on you to check the chat box because I'm not used to using WebEx. So
Yes, we're on the chat box.
All right.
So I'm Janet Moreland. I'm a recycling specialist here, and I always thought of myself as a super recycler. But this year, one of my goals was to address plastic bags. So I try not to buy anything in a plastic bag, which is really hard to do, but there are some alternatives. Um, and I reuse my plastic bags over and over until there's just no, they're not useful anymore. At that time, I collect all those bags and stuff them into one other bag. And with my waste hauler, I'm able to put those plastic bags that are consolidated into a bag and tie them and put those into my recycling bag. The idea is that those plastic bags don't get wrapped around the sorting belts and mechanics of the material recovery facility. So I don't know. That's just one little item that I, I I thought was kind of fun and unique. But that's my project for 2022.
Thank you, Janet, and nice to hear from you again. I want to name that as well, because when we have these things and we qualify them, right? We say, oh, they're little, or they're severe, or they're not normal. And what you're doing is, even in that gesture of taking the bags and putting them in another bag and knowing that they're going to the recycling with your hauler, is a practice. And these kinds of practices matter. There's that Buddhist quote that says, after enlightenment, chop wood and carry water. That's what you're doing. You're chopping wood, you're carrying water, you're taking those little bits and pieces and you're changing what's normal. And those kinds of actions directly benefit your community. So I have a follow-up question for you all. And feel free to speak up again, or just, popcorn the answers. But how many of you in this room are familiar with the connection between recycling and composting and reversing the climate crisis? I have to imagine like those links are being made because we're paying attention. You wouldn't be here in this summit, right? Tracy's got her thumb up. Thank you. So some of you are aware, and I want to just bring that to light today, because some of the things about climate action and taking these steps that you've shared with us today is doing the thing that might be uncomfortable for other people to think about, or talking about the thing that people don't really want to hear about. Like, oh, that sounds like an extra step in my day, or wow, that seems really drastic. But the only reason it feels that way is because we're operating under the assumption that somebody else is going to take care of it for us, right? I mean, I think I'm guilty of that. I've done that for a long time too. Oh, you know what? It's out of sight, out of mind. I don't have to think about it. Well, we're at this point in our history where we can no longer do that. We can no longer ignore what is happening. I mean, think about our extreme heat events this summer. I mean, in the desert, we had unprecedented humidity, and you'd think, well, that's not that bad, that's moisture. Actually, no, the plants, the cactus, freaking out because we're not supposed to have that kind of moisture here. So we have all of these extreme weather events now. And so we can't really turn away from that. And I just want to thank you all. I mean, first and foremost, thank you all for being the ones that we're waiting for. You are the people that are taking care of it. So now that you let me get to know you a little bit, I'd like to share about the work we've been doing with Desert Compost and the good news that people are taking in our community. So we can advance. Actually, Mike, I'm fine with slide 1. It's just fine. So with the community, I just want to say that we've been able to do some pretty fun stuff, and I want to share that with you today. But I also want to let you get to know me just for a second. I didn't come to this as like a compost crusader. I did not wake up one day and decide that's what I wanted to do with my life. But I did spend the last decade of my career as a community and family mediator. And I was working on behalf of people who needed help. And a little over a year ago, I realized that my work would not matter if we can't breathe and people can't eat. That my own work in social justice did not matter if climate justice wasn't also a part of my thinking and my actions. So I knew that whatever I did next needed to matter in such a way that I could point to a palpable difference being made in those areas, so that I could sleep at night and wake up with enough hope the next morning to do it all over again. So what you're looking at on this slide is a grant that I researched. And this grant came out over a year ago. It was 2 years ago that they released this first round of a grant. So I saw this and I thought, okay, compost community, that sounds all right. So I recruited a coalition of community members. We won the startup grant, and then we all trained as soil stewards and ended up approaching local government agencies, including RivCo, to advocate for something that would make a difference, the kind of difference that I personally was looking for. And I found that difference in community composting. So slide 3, please. So I'm here today to share with you what our organization has learned about reducing greenhouse gases, conserving water, creating less waste, enriching our soil, and feeding our community. And for our discussion together, I'd like to go over what we've done so far and the impact, and what we can do together as partners in climate action. So I'm going to give you a little bit of science, a little bit of data, and some outcomes. And then really I want to hear from you, your questions and see if I can answer those. But I just want to say that over this last period of time, we've all been through something, and it's this little thing called a pandemic. So I want to speak to the community part of the composting. Those two words are kind of misunderstood. So being that we've been through this thing, what it really clarified is that we need each other, truly. We need to connect on a human level with one another. And when we do that, that kind of connection is so powerful because it reaffirms that cooperation is safe and that connection is restorative. So if you teach a community to compost, you actually imbue the kind of connection that builds hope. And that kind of hope is also really important in bringing the earth back to a natural balance and healing our environment. So community composting, if it does nothing else, it brings us closer together as a community, which is very, very needed. Slide 4. So this is how we get it done. So since the outset, our coalition trained as master composters and soil stewards, and in just 1 year, we've been able to represent a large diversity. We have city government, students, youth, farmers markets, Sierra Club, faith-based organizations, service groups, food banks, businesses, tribes, farms, master gardeners, and private citizens, all in support of local composting solutions. And we've established the kind of partnerships that allow us to go out and teach people about zero waste practices and climate repair and activities that build education in these areas. So you're going to see us, you'll probably see us at something. If you're here today, you might be at an event at your library or your community garden or your climate action gatherings. We have volunteers that go and speak and educate and consult. And what inspires me most about this picture, or these pictures that you're looking at, are the kinds of partnerships that we've built that really speak for themselves. But the first picture that you're looking at is our first cohort of master composters. And these folks signed up for the 4-day training and came out every Saturday and worked to rebuild soil in the food access garden that they're standing next to. You're going to see more pictures on that later. But each one of these volunteers end up volunteering with Desert Compost 8 to 10 hours a year after the master composter training. So that's how we make sure that we have continued volunteerism. But we don't have to work that hard at it because for some reason, that whole connection thing I was talking about earlier, people really long for that. And so they show up because, okay, look at the group of girls, 8th grade Girl Scouts. Does anybody in this room remember 8th grade? I do. This is not what I would have been doing as an 8th grader. I mean, life was hard enough. Nobody wants to repeat that. But these girls, they ended up not only volunteering with us and still do, they took a project. It's the Girl Scout equivalent of a Boy Scout Eagle project. And they did their silver project on composting. These girls made an amazing video that captures all of the work that we've been doing in the Valley with Desert Compost. The next picture is the Palm Desert High School Ecology Club. Now, if you can't remember 8th grade, please remember high school. Early mornings, that was hard. Sleep, really important. But these kids, what you can't tell from the picture is it is about 7 o'clock in the morning on a Wednesday. That's midweek, that's before school. They're showing up to help out and compost every Wednesday on their school week. How do we do that? I mean, I don't know if it's as profound as it's coming across to me in my heart, but these kids are showing up to do this. And I just want to emphasize that this is a big deal. This is not just like, hey, we're going to go do a good thing once and then leave it be. No, these kids have decided that this is important enough that they're going to continue doing this. Why? Is connection really that powerful? Yes, it is. Is hope really that powerful? Yes, it is. Is climate action that important? Obviously. But I want to share a little bit more with you about a special partnership that came out of all of this volunteerism. In October 2021, there's a church in Palm Desert, St. Margaret's. They have an outreach coordinator named Chet Hecht, and they have a Neighbors for Neighbors food pantry program where they, at the height of the pandemic, were serving about 1,200 families a week with their food bank services. 1,200 families receiving food. And at the end of every week, the Neighbors for Neighbors program at St. Margaret's was left with tons and tons of inedible food. And so St. Margaret's, being the stewards that they are, not just of people, but also of the planet, decided that they were no longer okay with taking that inedible food and putting it into the garbage bin. So they called us up at Desert Compost and we started talking, and we decided that together we might be able to help them solve their problems. So slide 5, please. A little bit about the food waste that happens in our country and why John and Chet from St. Margaret's knew that this was such an important thing for them to address. More than 821 million people go to bed hungry each night. And the problem's even bigger than that, because what food doesn't get given out, it gets thrown away. 80 billion pounds of that thrown away. Slide 6, please. John and Chet at St. Margaret's also knew that there was some other stuff going on. It's not just that we weren't getting the connection and people weren't getting fed. Our soil is also in desperate need of repair. All over the world, topsoil is eroding faster than we can replenish it. In our master composter training with Mike and George, we learned that it takes about 10,000 years to build a 1/4 inch of soil. That's kind of massive. So when we look at all of the ways that food and food waste is responsible for releasing methane and carbon into the atmosphere, contributing to climate change, contributing to soil loss, fires, drought, extreme weather events, makes growing food pretty difficult. So John and Chet knew that if they didn't act, that at some point there wouldn't be food to distribute in those food bank boxes because we're not able to grow the food that we need to survive. Slide 7, please. So certainly everyone in this room knows that problems like these feel really, really big when we're left to solve them on our own. You're not alone. We're here. You've got community, you've got people, and St. Margaret's knew that too. They knew that they had the solution in their hands. So they partnered with Desert Compost and they created the first community compost site in the desert. All right, slide 9, please. To date, next slide, please. To date, in just 1 year, this site at St. Margaret's, which is about 9 by 30 feet, y'all, I mean, that's pretty small. This site has saved more than 30,000 pounds of food scraps and organics from going to the landfill. And instead of creation of greenhouse gases, these materials are now fueling soil growth and the garden that supports the food bank operation at St. Margaret's Church. And what they've created is something really beautiful, because they've not only been able to recycle the food scraps and grow them into a magnificent garden, but the herbs and the vegetables that are coming out of that garden are now supporting the food bank operation. So imagine receiving a handful of fresh basil grown from the very food scraps that have been contributing to that basil. So next slide, please. This is what it looks like. This is how we receive the material at St. Margaret's, and these, if you know anything about composting with Mike and George, you've seen a geobin. This is the preferred method. We've been using these geobins at St. Margaret's, and it's kind of fun. We get a little geeky, but now all of the geobins have names. So they've been able to do something really wonderful and provide the kind of benefits that is, yeah, I know, right? It's like, it's goofy. We've got like olive oil and Fred Flintstone, and thanks, Tracy. I think it's kind of funny too, but it's, we do have a good time. So that's a little bit about what we've been doing. And I just want to say, that's not it. There's more. Next slide, please. Look at these happy faces. I often take a look at this picture because there's something about it that is so satisfying. There's a contentment that happens when you're in community and when you're taking the kind of action that builds hope. And what we know is that that kind of action is the antidote to despair. And I want to call that out in the room, because you can't do this work without being really in touch with the problem that is looming over our heads. It's very real. And we get together and we do this weekly, and it fills up the cup of hope for me. So I just want to just name that. These are happy volunteers doing this work. Next slide, please. I promised you a little bit more, and I think I'm a little off on the slides, but I do want to show you right here. This is what the garden looked like before compost, before community. And then the picture on the right is what it looks like now. And I was out there this morning, and I wish I could have shown you the gorgeous eggplant. I mean, just the most happy purple eggplant you've ever seen in your entire life, growing in a garden that was built from community compost. Okay, so here's more. Let's go on, next slide. Ooh, that's a new picture, Mike, you weren't lying. Okay, it's even better, guys, but truly what you're looking at is life being brought back to life through community compost. All right, here's the final, this is your big whammy. I just want to make sure that if you take away nothing else from this conversation today, that you remember this. Why is composting and recycling and climate action, how are they connected? This is why. It's not just that people are doing good things. It's doing something really magical. I want you to take this fact with you. When you compost, when you do those little things, those teeny little things that seem quite small or severe or not normal, that you are doing something really magical. Compost does something that is absolutely necessary for us to continue life on this planet. It draws carbon down out of the air, because we kind of have a big carbon problem. It takes it out of the air and puts it in the soil. And what loves carbon? Those happy green plants. They feed on it. They feast on it. They need it. Life needs us to compost. So please take that with you, that is how we will reverse this climate crisis that we find ourselves in. And we can build something new and wonderful together and restore what is so precious. Next slide, please. So how do you do what we're doing? Because I want to let you know that this is, just a little over a year old and built on the backs of volunteers. This is something that's totally doable. I'd love it if anybody in this room who's interested, or your gears are turning and you're thinking, there's that vacant lot, or there's that food bank or community garden, that we could do this there too. If that's like running through your mind right now, reach out to us, send me an email, ask me, how to do it in your neighborhood, in your city, in your town. This is a way for you to get more involved and to do something that is actually really meaningful and is making a difference. And we're here to help. That's our whole job. Desert Compost organized so that we could help others do the same thing that we're doing. We have another project that just started at the College of the Desert. We're composting about 500 pounds of material coming out of an early childhood development center there. And we have 15 more projects in the pipes. We have some pre-approved projects that we've selected should we be awarded the second round of the grant that I mentioned earlier. And that allows us to establish more community sites throughout the whole Inland Empire. So while it says desert in our name, we're not isolated in the desert here. We are your neighbors, and we are here to help. So if this is something that you would like to see in your neighborhood, we would love to teach you how to do it. It takes very, very little startup cost. You can start a site in under $1,000, and you've got people who are passionate about it and ready and willing to help. So thanks so much. That's my spiel, guys. I would love to hear any questions that come up as you went. I know that I could talk about this subject for hours, but I want to just check in with you all. And how was that to hear? Is this your first experience with any kind of community-based composting? Is this something that, are you still left wondering, like, what the heck did she just talk about? What are they doing? Anybody want to join us at one of our sites and make some compost angels? That's always available to you. And Mike, we can end the slides. Thanks so much. Yes, that one's important.
This is how we make the angels, isn't it?
That's right. That's how you make angels.
Right. Well, thank you, Haley.
You're welcome.
Very good presentation.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I'm going to turn it back over to Mike to go to the next person. Thank you, Mike.
Thanks, you all. Be in touch.
Thank you very much, Haley. It was great. Great time. And with that, I think the next one up is going to be Sylvia. Sylvia, I'll let you take the button.
Thank you. So I will be introducing our next presenter, Lissete Ochoa. Lissete is a recycling specialist here at the Riverside County Department of Waste Resources. She graduated from UC Riverside in 2021 with a BS in sustainability and joined the department as a recycling specialist in May 2022. She has experience in environmental education, climate resiliency, and community outreach. And a fun fact about Lissete is that she's been a vegetarian for 6 years. I will let you take over, Lissete.
Thank you, Sylvia. Can everyone see my presentation?
Yes, and we can hear you too.
Thank you. Good. Audio good?
Audio's good.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Lissete, and I'm happy to close the residence track of our summit with a presentation all about climate change. Climate change is certainly a hot topic, and SB 1383 is California's latest strategy to reduce short-lived climate pollutants through organic waste recycling and surplus food recovery. Throughout our summit, we've discussed how SB 1383 will affect businesses, residents, and schools, but now let's dive into the key issue at hand. Please feel free to drop any questions in the chat as we move along, and we can address them in the end. Today, we'll cover a few components of climate change. We'll first discuss some important terms and definitions. Then we'll investigate the causes of climate change and the resulting feedback loops. Next, we'll explore climate change impacts on the environment and society through indicators. Lastly, we'll close on some actionable items we can all take on as individuals to combat climate change. Most of these definitions we'll discuss now, along with other materials in this class, are derived from the Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, NASA, and the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, IPCC, which is the United Nations body that provides regular assessments of the scientific basis of climate change, its impacts and future risks, and options for adaptation and mitigation. Anthropogenic is made by humans or resulting from human activities. We usually use this word when describing emissions resulting from human activities. The atmosphere is the gaseous envelope surrounding the Earth, approximately 78.1% nitrogen, 20.9% oxygen, and other trace gases. The atmosphere is like a jacket or blanket that surrounds our planet. It keeps us warm, gives us oxygen to breathe, and is where weather occurs. Climate refers to the average pattern of weather conditions over a long period of time for a large area. It's important to make the distinction between climate and weather. Weather refers to the conditions over a short, particular time and can change within minutes or hours. Climate, on the other hand, is how the atmosphere behaves over a long period of time and space. The greenhouse effect refers to the trapping and buildup of heat in the atmosphere near the Earth's surface. It is one of the many things that make the Earth habitable. Greenhouse gases absorb infrared radiation heat in the atmosphere, thus becoming the main drivers of the greenhouse effect, as depicted in the diagram here. Anthropogenic activities, however, have resulted in an increase in greenhouse gases, which enhances the greenhouse effect and overall rises the temperature of the Earth. Global warming ultimately refers to this recent and ongoing global average temperature increase on Earth's surface. The IPCC estimates the Earth has warmed 1.96 degrees Fahrenheit since pre-industrial times and expects a global average temperature rise of 2.7 degrees Fahrenheit between 2030 and 2052. Please note, global warming is just one aspect of climate change. Fossil fuels are coal, crude oil, and natural gas derived from ancient plants and animals over millions of years old. Fossil fuels are burned and/or refined to provide electricity, heat, and transportation. Humans rely on fossil fuels daily. Let's focus on each of these. Coal, the most abundant fossil fuel, is primarily used to generate electric power in the United States. The heat produced by the combustion of burning of coal is used to convert water into high-pressure steam, which drives a turbine and produces electricity. Crude oil exists in underground pools or reservoirs and is extracted by drilling a hole into the earth. Oil is then transported to refineries where it is transformed into usable fuels, most notably gasoline and diesel, as well as petroleum products. Lastly, natural gas is also found in underground deposits, and one method is to extract natural gas is hydraulic fracking. Most natural gas in the United States is used for heating and generating electricity. All fossil fuels are non-renewable energy sources. Once these are used up, they cannot be replenished. With our climate change basics covered, we can finally address the question at hand: what is climate change? Climate change refers to changes in global or regional climate patterns attributed largely to human-caused increased levels of atmospheric greenhouse gases. In other words, climate change includes major changes in temperature, precipitation, or wind patterns, among others, that occur over several decades or longer. The Earth's climate is always changing, but natural causes alone cannot explain recent phenomena. According to the IPCC's latest sixth assessment report, Impacts, Adaptation, and Vulnerability, human-induced climate change has caused widespread adverse impacts and related losses and damages to nature and people beyond natural climate variability. The causes of climate change are multifaceted, but today we'll discuss natural processes, anthropogenic activities, and perhaps the most alarming, climate feedback loops. Let's take a look at each. Changes in the Earth's orbit and its axis of rotation have a big impact on short-term weather and long-term climate. Milankovitch cycles include the shape of the Earth's orbit, known as eccentricity, the angle that Earth's axis is tilted, known as obliquity, and the change in orientation of Earth's rotational axis, known as precession. These cycles affect the amount of sunlight and therefore energy the Earth absorbs from the sun. Eccentricity measures how much the shape of Earth's orbit departs from a perfect circle, thus affecting the distance between the Earth and the sun. Currently, the Earth's eccentricity is near its most circular and is very slowly decreasing in a cycle that spans about 100,000 years. Obliquity, or the Earth's tilt, is why we have seasons. The greater tilt angle, the more extreme our seasons are, as each hemisphere receives more solar radiation during its summer when the hemisphere is tilted toward the sun, and less during winter when it is tilted away. Earth's axis is currently tilted 23.4 degrees, or about halfway between its extremes, and this angle is very slowly decreasing in a cycle that spans about 41,000 years. You can imagine axial precession as the Earth rotating like a slightly off-center spinning toy top. Changes in axial precession increase the seasonal contrast in one hemisphere and decrease in the other. In about 13,000 years, axial precession will cause the northern hemisphere to see more extremes in solar radiation and cause the southern hemisphere to experience more moderate seasonal variations. Milankovitch cycles operate on long timescales and provide a strong framework for understanding long-term changes in Earth's climate, but they cannot account for the current period of rapid warming Earth is experiencing. Variations in solar activity also influence the amount of heat the Earth receives from the sun. During each solar cycle, levels of solar radiation can go up or down Levels of solar radiation can go up or down, which has a variety of effects in space, in Earth's atmosphere, and on Earth's surface. The graph here depicts amount of solar energy the Earth receives has followed the sun's natural 11-year cycle of small ups and downs with no net increase since the 1950s. Over the same period, global temperature has steadily increased. It is therefore extremely unlikely that the sun has caused the observed global temperature warming trend over the past half-century. The IPCC claims the human burning of fossil fuels is in fact 50 times greater than that slight extra warming coming from the sun. As mentioned, anthropogenic activities are largely responsible for the increase in greenhouse gases. Key greenhouse gases we'll focus on are carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide, and fluorinated gases. Each gas's impact on climate depends on three main factors: 1. The concentration or amount in the air. Larger emissions of greenhouse gases lead to higher concentrations in the atmosphere. Greenhouse gas concentrations are measured in parts per million, parts per billion, and even parts per trillion. 1 part per million is equivalent to 1 drop of water diluted into about 13 gallons of liquid. 2. Lifetime in the atmosphere. Each of these gases can remain in the atmosphere for different amount of times, ranging from a few years to thousands of years. All these gases remain in the atmosphere long enough to become well mixed, meaning that the amount that is measured in the atmosphere is roughly the same all over the world, regardless of the source of the emissions. 3. Global warming potential, or GWP. Some gases are more effective than others at trapping heat and making the planet warmer. Greenhouse gases with a higher global warming potential absorb more energy and thus contribute more to global warming. Global warming potential is specifically a measure of how much energy the emissions of 1 ton of gas will absorb over a given period of time, usually 100 years, relative to that of carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide, or CO2 emissions, can be attributed to the combustion of fossil fuels to provide transportation, electricity, and power industrial processes. The combustion of fossil fuels to create gasoline and diesel to transport people and goods was the largest source of CO2 emissions in 2020. This includes domestic transportation, sources such as highway and passenger vehicles, air travel, marine transportation, and rail. Coming in second was electricity, and followed by industrial processes that can also emit CO2 indirectly through using electricity. Methane, or CH4 emissions, can be attributed to the agriculture sector, energy production, as well as residential and commercial waste. Domestic livestock such as cattle, swine, and sheep produce methane as part of their normal digestive process, and is also released in animal manure when it is stored or managed in lagoons or holding tanks. Because humans raise these animals for food and other products, the emissions are considered anthropogenic. Energy industry are also major sources of methane, followed by waste from homes and businesses. Landfills are in fact the 3rd largest source of methane. Methane emitted today lasts about a decade, or 10 years on average, which is much less time than carbon dioxide, but methane absorbs much more energy than carbon dioxide. Nitrous oxide, or N2O emissions, can be attributed to agriculture, soil management, fuel combustion, industry, and waste. Nitrous oxide can result from various agricultural soil management activities, such as the application of synthetic and organic fertilizers and other cropping practices. Nitrous oxide is also emitted when fuels are burned. The amount of N2O emitted from burning fuels depends on the type of fuel and combustion technology, maintenance, and practices. Nitrous oxide emitted today remains in the atmosphere for more than 100 years on average and has a global warming potential of 265 to 298 times that of CO2. Unlike many greenhouse gases, fluorinated gases have no natural sources and only come from anthropogenic activities. They are mainly emitted through their use as substitutes for ozone-depleting substances. Fluorinated gases are sometimes called high global warming potential gases because for a given amount of mass, they trap substantially more heat than carbon dioxide. The global warming potentials for these gases can be in the thousands or tens of thousands. High concentrations of greenhouse gas emissions result in a warmer climate. The warming climate then triggers nature's own warming mechanisms, or climate feedback loops. A positive feedback loop enhances or amplifies the effects of change, producing instability. A negative feedback loop reduces or dampens the effect of change, helping maintain balance. So a bit counterintuitive here, but our main takeaway is a positive feedback loop will increase the effects of warming. Global forests absorb approximately 25% of human-caused carbon from the atmosphere. However, this percentage is shrinking as the climate warms from increased carbon dioxide emissions. Combined with human activity, the warming has resulted in increases in fires, diseases, and insect populations, all leading to tree dieback. As trees burn and decay, they release carbon back into the atmosphere. And with fewer trees left, more carbon dioxide remains in the atmosphere. Both lead to further warming and more tree dieback. If forests release more carbon than they store, they switch from carbon sinks to carbon sources. Permafrost, an icy expanse of frozen ground covering 1/4 of the northern hemisphere, is thawing. As it does, microscopic animals are waking up and feeding on the previously frozen carbon stored in plants and animal remains. As they do, they release heat-trapping gases as a byproduct. These gases warm the atmosphere, causing more warming and melt even more permafrost as a result. With permafrost containing twice as much carbon as the atmosphere, its thaw could release 150 billion tons of carbon by the end of the century. A warmer atmosphere absorbs more water vapor, a naturally occurring gas formed by the evaporation of water mostly from lakes and oceans. It is the most abundant heat-trapping gas, accounting for 60% of all warming caused by atmospheric greenhouse gases. With both the climate and the oceans warming, increased evaporation adds even more water to the atmosphere, or more water vapor to the atmosphere. Some water vapor also cools and condenses, forming clouds. By reflecting sunlight away from the planet, clouds can also cool the earth, and by trapping heat below them, they can warm it. As the climate warms, oceans are also warming, although not a feedback loop. The combination of increased water vapor and ocean warming is driving hurricanes, making the stronger storms more frequent. Climate change is also disrupting the jet stream, a west to east flow of wind that encircles the northern hemisphere and is responsible for influencing the weather in North America, Europe, and Asia. When the Arctic is cold, the jet stream winds blow strong and fast. But with the Arctic warming 2 to 3 times the rate as the rest of the globe, the jet stream has weakened, resulting in larger north to south swings. The larger swings of the weakened jet stream result in extreme weather events as weather stalls in one place for a long time. Because of this, the wet places become more damp and the dry places become warmer and drier. The multi-year drought in the western U.S., the increase in wildfires, and the extreme heat in the Pacific Northwest in 2021 are connected to this larger north to south swing in the jet stream. The reflectivity of snow and ice at the poles, known as the albedo effect, is one of Earth's most important cooling mechanisms. At Earth's poles, snow and ice reflect up to 85% of the sun's rays away from the surface and back into space, helping to keep the planet cool. In the Arctic, this natural mirror has begun to break down as warming temperatures melt snow and ice cover, reducing the planet's reflectivity. In summer, when the ocean snow melts, the open water absorbs 90% of the sunlight, warming the ocean, which in turn melts more sea ice, reducing reflectivity even more. Approximately 25% of global warming can be attributed to the loss of Arctic sea ice. In Antarctica, the melting of land ice at the South Pole doesn't affect reflectivity because the ice sheets are miles thick. However, as ice melts and enters the ocean, it causes sea level to rise. If both Greenland and Antarctica's glacial ice shelves were to melt, sea levels could potentially rise by more than 100 feet. We've briefly touched on some of the environmental impacts of climate change, but let's officially delve into climate change indicators. Climate change indicators are observations and calculations that land managers, scientists, and planners can use to track conditions and trends. They can also be used to understand how environmental conditions are changing and inform resilience planning. Greenhouse gases from human activities are the most significant driver in observed climate change since the mid-20th century. The graph in the top right corner shows that the warming influence of long-lived greenhouse gases in the atmosphere has increased by 47% between 1990 and 2020. The rising global average temperature is associated with widespread changes in weather patterns and contributes to many other climate effects. Heat waves are occurring more than they used to in major cities in the United States, and roughly 20 to 70% of U.S. land has experienced conditions that were at least abnormally dry at any given time during the last 20 years. The figure in the center shows how annual average temperatures worldwide have changed since 1901. The climate change has altered many properties of our oceans. The amount of heat stored in the ocean has increased substantially, and sea surface temperatures have been consistently higher during the past 3 decades than at any other time. The ocean has also become more acidic because of increased levels of atmospheric CO2, which affects valuable marine ecosystems like coral reefs. Declining sea ice also threatens natural habitats for animals like polar bears and walruses, and affects people living in the Arctic who rely on ice for hunting and subsistence. Glaciers in the United States and around the world have generally shrunk since the 1960s, and the loss of sea ice from glaciers have contributed to the observed rise in sea level. Changes in the Earth's climate can affect public health, agriculture, water supplies, energy production and use, land use and development, and recreation. The nature and extent of these effects and whether they will be harmful or beneficial will vary regionally and over time. Changes in the Earth's climate can affect ecosystems by altering the water cycle, animal behavior, and the timing of natural processes. While plants and animals have adapted to environmental change for millions of years, the climate changes being experienced now could require adaptation on larger and faster timescales, thus increasing the risk of extinction or severe disruption for many species. While wildfires occur naturally, more frequent and more intense fires can significantly disrupt ecosystems, damage property, put people and communities at risk, and create air pollution problems even far away from the source. We all rely on land, air, and water for our health and well-being. Climate change, however, can exacerbate existing health threats or create new public health challenges through a variety of pathways. Climate change can also affect people by changing their exposure to health threats. For instance, the climate impact of increased temperature leads to exposure of extreme heat and then may lead to health outcomes such as heat-related illnesses. Environmental, institutional, social, and behavioral factors such as age, geography, gender, and poverty may influence or affect a health outcome. Here are 3 additional examples of how climate impacts can affect health. The numbered circles identify where climate change indicators provide key information at different points along the pathways. For example, the flooding pathway example shows how indicators of certain climate impacts like sea level, heavy precipitation, and coastal flooding could be used by state and local health officials to better understand changes in human exposure to contaminated waters. By recognizing changing risks, these officials can better understand how climate change affects the number of people who get sick with gastrointestinal illnesses. Thus, even where health data or long-term records are unavailable, or where the links between climate and health outcomes are complex, indicators play an important role in understanding climate-related health impacts. So who's at risk? Every American faces a risk of health impacts associated with climate change. Our vulnerability to climate change health impacts depend on the hazards to which we are exposed, our sensitivity to these hazards, and our ability to adapt. Thus, it is important to be able to identify populations of concern, which includes group presenting people of all ages living in different places who interact with the environment in different ways. Here are some examples of communities that may be more vulnerable because of their differences in their exposure, sensitivity, and ability to adapt to climate-related stresses. It's important to remember that different health impacts identified here do not occur in isolation. People can face multiple threats at the same time, at different stages in their lives, or accumulating over the course of their lives. Risk may also increase as people are exposed to multiple health threats. For example, extremely hot days can lead to heat-related illnesses as well as poor air quality issues that increase by the heat and the chemical reactions. In addition, many of the factors that influence whether a person is exposed to health threats or whether they become ill, such as an individual's personal habits, limb conditions, and access to medical care, can also change over time. Certainly, we're in the face of a climate emergency and we need global climate action now. But we can start healing the planet in our daily lives with simple choices. Greening our travel by carpooling or taking public transit reduces carbon dioxide emissions. By planting and protecting trees and natural areas, we preserve carbon sinks. Shopping and cooking efficiently, as well as recovering as much edible food as possible, prevents food waste from reaching landfills. Cutting energy use and switching to solar in our homes decreases demand for fossil fuels. Last but certainly not least, we can all speak up and inform others about the information discussed today. Another form of cutting organic waste is composting. Composting diverts organic materials from landfills into a soil amendment that helps increase resiliency among climate change impacts such as drought and extreme weather through carbon storage and reduction of synthetic fertilizers. The Riverside County Department of Waste Resources offers classes on composting and vermicomposting throughout the year in our resource garden and offers composting and vermicomposting bins available for purchase for Riverside County residents. Recycling is also an extremely easy and impactful way to combat climate change in your home. Recycling eliminates the need for new raw materials to make new products. For instance, recycling 1 ton of paper saves 17 trees from being cut and also reduces energy and water consumption by 40% and 30% respectively. Let's set the record straight by debunking some climate change myths before we conclude today's presentation. 1. I have never been affected by climate change. As we established, climate impacts are affecting communities around the world by changing their exposure to health threats like extreme heat and poor air quality. As the climate crisis worsens, we can only expect increased health risks. 2. Climate change will happen in 50 years. The indications of climate change have been observed and recorded since the mid-20th century. Greenhouse gases will likely exacerbate climate change in upcoming years if we don't curb our emissions. 3. Climate change does not occur in the United States. The U.S. is no stranger to climate change. Parts of the U.S. are experiencing abnormally dry conditions, increased wildfires, and melting of ice glaciers. Thank you so much, everyone. I believe additional resources are being shared in the chat for more info about climate change, and I invite you all to check out our climate change webpage, where you can access our on-demand class as well as our Climate Change 101 fact sheet and resources. Not sure if there's any questions in the chat that we can address.
Yeah, I could read. We have 2 questions from Brianna. We have, might you know when these feedback loops were discovered?
I don't know the exact date, but I believe a link was shared. I believe a group of climate scientists came together and kind of provided documentation about all the different feedback loops. So I highly recommend to check out that website. There's tons of information, I think even videos on it. So I really recommend to check that out and learn more about feedback loops. I was definitely amazed by the amount of information that is available on feedback loops.
Brianna said cool and thank you. And then we also have a question from us. Is there a hierarchy of anthropomorphic changes that humans can implement to see the greatest amount of change?
That's an interesting question. I'd say because carbon dioxide is one of the most abundant anthropogenic greenhouse gases, I would say maybe changing our activities that contribute to CO2 emissions. So that would be implementing more sustainable transportation in our lives. And then also, right, methane too, which is coming from our organic and food waste. So curbing those emissions by our habits and food waste. I would just say it's any way that you look at it, you know, which is most easy to tackle in your daily life. So those are just 2 examples on ways you can address those greenhouse gases.
I will give everybody a little bit of time to put in any last minute questions while I just say thank you, Lissette, for your presentation. It was really informative. If we don't have any questions, I can move on to a couple. I wanted to know whether scientists agree about climate change.
Yes, according to NASA, about 97% of scientists agree on climate change, and they have submitted, you know, public statements saying that they do agree on climate change. Different entities like the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, as well as different academic sources.
Thank you. And how much does organic and food waste contribute to the climate crisis?
Yes, organic waste is actually the #1 item that gets landfilled. So a lot of the methane emissions that do come from landfills, the #1 component is that organic and food waste. So it is definitely a big contributor to climate change, and is one of the many reasons why California decided to pass SB 1383 to do our part and curb our emissions in our homes.
I wanted to ask something. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, please.
I think for the last question, somebody mentioned what we can do, you know, to reverse this climate change at a personal level. Is there any checklist on the Riverside County Department of Waste Resource? Like, I think once I started doing like energy audit and auditing my home itself, I figured out like, oh, the first step I can do is like change all the lights to LED lights, or make sure to service your refrigerator once in a while to check the levels of the refrigerant so that it's not emitting more gases. So if there is a checklist for like the households that people can do it on their own, or these little things, not, I mean, we all listening about climate change and hearing about it, but we can't be the big things where like corporations or something can make the big change. But every house, if we make shift from like regular lights to LED lights, that's a start. If we are checking our refrigerator or cooling refrigerator so it's not piled up with dust on the backside on the condenser, and it's giving it more space to breathe properly, that's a way we are helping the climate at our personal level. And I hope we can come up with a list like that where every homeowner or individual who is interested in that. And at the same time, it begs me the question right now. I pulled out all my old bulbs and changed the LED lights. And how can I properly recycle those bulbs that are perfectly working, but I want to just make a change? So that will be really helpful if we can put, hey, this is the thing you can do at your home, and this is the way you can recycle the stuff that you're going to, like, bulbs or something. That will be really helpful.
Yeah, those are some great points. I'm sharing our waste guide, which at least will answer some of the question you had about, what to do or how to properly dispose of the materials in our house that may contain like hazardous items and contribute to climate change. Unfortunately, we don't have any resources based on like sustainable products, but we do provide educational campaigns on our social media, where we do highlight maybe sustainable products and also sustainable logos that you can look for when you purchase items at the store. But there is that personal responsibility that we do have to take on when we, buy new items, and whether or not it's going to have a lasting detrimental impact on the environment. So definitely a lot of personal responsibility we need to take on in our purchasing habits. And then Tracy had said donation to thrift, Salvation Army, Habitat for Humanity Restore as some available resources we can look into.
I think that pretty much wraps up our day 2 of our summit. Thank you everybody for being here. I can turn it over to Mike or Janet if they have any last minute comments. And thank you again, Lissette, for your presentation.
Great, I'll pick it up from here. Great, what a wonderful presentation there, Lizette. Man, I'm just overwhelmed with all that information. That's a lot of things you never think about. Well, I wanted to, just before we conclude, I wanted to throw out a little information about our volunteer opportunities. We didn't mention this yesterday. We probably should have. This is just an excellent opportunity for people out there to be part of the solution, just like you were talking about, opportunities that you can help educate the public in vermicomposting, recycling, composting. So just want to throw that out there. There's all those opportunities. There's a lot of benefits that come from it. Recognition for your help makes a difference in the community. You learn great skills. You meet a lot of great people, like the people that are on this site right now. Prima, who's out there doing a fantastic job, and just going out and meeting her and see what she does, and just every little bit counts. So wanted to throw that out there. And just want to throw, here's some pictures of things that you can do as a volunteer. We go out to different events. And there's one for the garden out at St. Catharines. We do plantings here in our garden. We go to communities, we go to fairs, we do all kinds of outreaches. Here's some more pictures, and here's some pictures of, recognition that we have once you've served, hours and stuff like that. You get a chance to be a presenter at different events. You learn new skills, just like the greenhouse cleaning that you see that we put on. A lot of stuff. So as a volunteer, I encourage you to go out and get involved and do it with us. It's a lot of fun, and like I said, a lot of great people, and you do make an impact. That I can tell you. So with that, I'd like to thank you guys, thank everybody for joining us for the RivCo Recycle Community Summit. It was a great day, a lot of good information. And we hope to get all those presentations on the website soon. Here again, more ways to connect with us. It's on our website, but here again, here's some more connections here. And one thing we want to stress is please give us your feedback. Right here is a QR code. Point your camera at it, snap the camera off, and that'll get you right to giving us a little bit some information. That feedback is so important to us. And down below is the link. Hopefully we can get that inside our chat there. And that'll be real helpful. So anyways, I guess that's going to conclude this
This is
RivCo
Janet.
summit.
No, just before you finish, Mike,
Go ahead.
when we strongly encourage you to put some feedback on that customer service survey. And if you have some ideas or other projects and things that you want to hear more about, please put your needs, waste-related needs or presentations you'd like to see in the future. So that's
Great. Excellent. Okay. That concludes it. Everybody have a good day the rest of the day. Thank you. Hey, Janet, stay on. You there, Janet?
Yeah, Mike, I'm still here.
Okay. Maybe we could run some tests if we need to after when it gets off.
Can I ask something before I go?
Sure.
Sure, Brianna.
I wondered if there was any updates with the Riverside volunteer. I don't know. I was trying to look at the emails to get the right word for it. Orientation, something, just kind of the thing to get started with volunteering with you guys.
Yeah. Yeah, I believe there is. George, you still on?
No, George is off right now.
He stepped off. Okay. We will get an email out there, Brianna. Did you already contact us about that?
I did the sign up thing and got the immediate kind of automated message back
Okay.
and called George about a week later for another random thing. But yeah, I just wondered if that was still on track for happening. That's all.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. And we will get back to you immediately. As soon as he gets back, he might have just stepped out for a minute. And I'll get you an email off right away.
Oh yeah, no rush. If if there's an email being sent out to everyone, then all good. I just wanted to make sure. Thank you so much.
Excellent. Hey, question for you, Brianna.
Yes.
How's your worms doing?
Oh my god, I put in strawberries and then they started to get like fuzzy, the mold.
Uh-huh.
And I was so scared. I'm like, oh god, that's gonna kill all the worms. And then I look it up and they love it.
They love it. Exactly.
Yeah.
Good.
And yeah, not too many worms have fallen through. There was a couple the first week, but it was too late. They're already just kind of gross, sad.
Yeah.
But
They'll multiply.
yeah.
They'll multiply. Good. You're doing good.
Yeah,
No, but
thank you
Excellent.
for asking.
that's good that you're checking the reservoir periodically because if you do it, they'll live in that water for several days. So just keep checking it periodically and fish them out if you need to.
Oh my god, that's like funny to imagine them just like swimming around.
Just remember they can't. No arms.
Oh, yeah. Well, thank you guys for all this too.
All
Hope
right.
to see you guys tomorrow.
Excellent. We'd love to have you back tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Brianna.
You guys have a great rest of your day.
You
Relax.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, bye.
Bye.
All right. She's
Okay,
off.
Mike. So I just copied all of the comments in the chat and I saved that to a Word document. And now you want
That should come up if you on your, let's see, did you stop the recording? Go down to the
No,
record
the
button.
recording is still in process.
Okay, so press the record button now. And it should be something to
And
stop it.
stop.
Hit stop.